Welcome everyone to another episode of our podcast Conscious Health. And we are going to discuss with an honored guest, Jan. Welcome. Natasha, my co host, welcome. And
Thank you. Hello,
today we're
everyone.
going to discuss a very important topic that many people don't know about it. I think it's just I guess that we figure it out when we have this pandemic under the COVID conditions because we receive that kind of sense of losing our smell. So we're going to talk about, can your nose predict brain health and the science of smell? And to that, I'm going to introduce Jan. Jan is a Master in Science, DTM, RIT, and is a health and wellness coach, yoga and meditation instructor, an essential oil educator with over 20 years of experience in integrative health. She combines science and holistic practices to empower people and their pets toward optimum wellness. Jan's approach bridges research with real life tools to help individuals enhance cognitive health, emotional balance, and overall vitality. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you both.
So, we would like to begin by understanding your background and how do you arrive to this integrative, holistic path, let's say.
Um, I guess you would say, like many things, you're directed there out of need. I grew up very traditionally educated as far as health and medicine went or research.
Mhm.
Really never looked at much that was holistic at all. And was brought to yoga, and that was probably my first entryway into like sort of more holistic modalities or body work. But I also at that point became ill, and the doctors decided that they were going to monitor me, quote unquote, and sent me home. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, now what? Like, what do I do now? Like, I'm just like going to wait and, decide, 6 months to a year for them to decide what they're going to do. And I felt so helpless, like,
Mm,
and so I decided that I was going to go out and empower myself, that I was
mm,
going to go out and find things that I could do to help myself. And that kind of opened up the door for me to start exploring other modalities, things like, but things like that were everyday life things like what I was eating and, what chemicals were in my home and what toxins I was surrounding myself with. You know, and then things like meditation and breath work and reflexology, acupuncture, like the list goes on. And I've never been type of person where I put all my like one thing is the be all end all solution for everything.
mhm,
So when people ask me, I'm like, well, if somebody works with me or myself, I mean, I go for chiropractic, I go to an acupuncturist, I use them all. And I think they
mm,
all have a purpose.
mhm,
Yeah. So that's how I kind of got here.
Oh, I totally resonate with your story as well. I was very much in a corporate environment. And yeah, I hit this phase where I felt like my body, well, I'd broken my legs in 5 places and I was so stressed out. It was affecting my whole body. And I went back to my spiritual, I'm lucky I've had spiritual roots as it comes in, but I was like, I need to do something that's not like, it's more than just physical. And it was absolutely, I completely understand. And I went back into that meditation. I started with Reiki, hands-on healing. For me, it was more that aspect of it. But I think you're 100% accurate, even for me as a practitioner, and for you as well. You probably, like, I refer people on to specialists when I see, because like we can take our clients just so far sometimes, and then sometimes we need many hands. And then even for us as well, it's important to reach out when we are going through something, which is beautiful. I'm very curious about the notion of smell, because I mean, smell for me in spirituality is very much linked to intuition and to spirit. Like, and that's one of the things, like, when we live in this metaphysical world, and I'm going to go to the woo-woo side because that's my job on this podcast as well, is I used to be walking down the street, and sometimes, like, because I came traveling to Europe, I was born in South Africa by myself, and when I first came over, I remember smelling my grandmother's perfume, and I knew that she was with me. Or I remember smelling a horrible smell when I'd been in places that was just like, and it's very much linked to the aspect of spirit as well. But that space of intuition, I think, is so important. That saying, follow your nose. It's like, go with the flow, follow your nose. Your nose knows where it's going. What are your thoughts on this?
I think I combine them both. And I think that part of, when we think about breathing as far as a mechanism, part of the reason we kind of sample the air no matter where we are is because it's such an integral part of our breath. Like if you breathe in and out through your nose, I mean, your like the nerve cells for smell are located in your nasal passages. And so we're constantly doing that. So in a way, it's this constant almost connection to spirit because it's also connected to breath. And so it's this constant connection to the spiritual world or to our intuition. In that way, it's also one of the primary elements of survival. And I think that's, follow your nose because it's one of our mechanisms as a species to be able to survive in the world was based on our sense of smell.
Safety, no?
Yeah, safety, protection, mating, things like that, which were basically, smell was very, very integral part, and still is. We sort of downplay it a lot and we don't pay much attention to it until we don't have it. And then all of a sudden it becomes very relevant. Which is, go ahead.
Well, that's my intervention of the science now, because I think the most impactful way that I understood how important the smell was during COVID, because when I had this virus that completely disrupted my sense of smell, I really suffer from everything. I mean, I felt without motivation. I felt without hunger. I felt without being able to relate the world or explore my environment, as you were mentioning, and we were saying about safety. So that's the importance for me about smell. And what can you explain us about these multiple pathways that the sense of smell is linking in such an understated, let's say, sense of our own well-being, no?
Yeah, I think it's, as time's gone on, I think it's been somewhat, very much ignored. I mean, I think there was a study done by the NIH a number of years ago, well, let's say in the past, like 10 years. And when people were asked if they had to give up a sense, and I understand, like compared to maybe vision or something, you'd kind of understand why people, but people said that they would be willing to give up their sense of smell for a cell phone.
Oh.
And, kind of like reflects the times to me, when people so devalue something that, it's so like easily put aside. And to me, not understanding its value, like you brought up, like so many of the primary reasons why our sense of smell is so important. One is our ability to stay nourished, like food-wise, is really based on our sense of smell more than taste. I mean, we only determine 4 things by taste, and that's whether something is sour, sweet, savory, or salty. All the rest is really determined by our sense of smell. And so when we lose our sense, I mean, you don't even need COVID, but get a cold and all of a sudden everything tastes funny. You're like, this doesn't taste like anything, or it tastes like cardboard. It tastes bland. So much of food and nourishment, as far as nutrition, is based on our sense of smell. It is also used as a protective mechanism. It's the way people used to be able to determine whether things were spoiled or food was not good, whether water was safe, was basically based on smell and the odor it would emit. And then as far as the species, and we don't usually use this that much at all, but people have a particular odor about them. And I'm not talking about body odor. I'm talking about people have like an aroma they emit. And originally that was used for mating purposes. It was also used so that, studies have been done where a mother can determine their infant from another infant based on smell. And vice versa, that infants can determine their mother from another woman based on smell. So it was very much involved in that whole sort of nurturing and care aspect. And then as far as the species go, we spend billions of dollars a year on the smell industry, from aromas to perfume to laundry detergent to cleaning products to, it's such a massive, obviously it must be important on some level. And people must really hold value in the fact that they want their environments to smell good, and they want themselves want to smell nice. And so it's like, must place some importance as far as just pleasure and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And it's so interesting when it comes to kind of cooking, because I don't eat red meat. I eat fish, but it doesn't stop me from cooking red meat. I'm not anti-meat eating. I think we should have all diets that suit us. I'm not making a point on that. But what I am making a point is when I can't taste what I'm making, I'll make turkey, I'll make whatever it is, I use my sense of smell. And then I'll ask one of my kids that do eat meat, taste this, because I don't know if there's is it too salty? And it's funny because you can also, you can smell sugar, whether you've put sugar in a coffee or not. So I completely agree with that. It's of utmost importance, absolutely. But the other thing that I was going to say, the sense of smell that animals have to detect disease as well is very, very interesting in, how that comes in too. And then I just wanted to make another thing. So I'm going to ask you to comment on that. And then the other thing is with the vibrational frequencies of certain smells. So for example, after I wash my floors, I will wash my floors, the final one, with eucalyptus, because energetically it clears the vibrational frequency, or camphor, especially if it's flu season, in that, or I'll use kind of like a natural, or lavender. So depending on what it is, that will kind of those smells will bring in calm to the nervous system. So there's that essential oils, I think, is of utmost importance on a vibrational level for working with, our health at the same time as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It's been studied that every oil has an energetic frequency. And, if a human being has their own frequency or energy vibration. And so using them in your environment or on yourself actually helps increase that frequency. So that's, I very much, I very much agree with that. I also think, yes, and I think that what you were saying originally about food and everything, and I do think that meat has, I'm a vegan pretty much, and and most of the time it doesn't bother me, but every now and then it bothers me, and I'll be like, but to that note, about, part of the reason they said, I was doing research for something else, and it was looking up the difference between a male's ability to smell, sense of smell, versus female. And in general, females have a better sense of smell than men do. And, part of that is that sort of survival, nurturing, the care. The other reason they say is because in general, it was always women were more involved with food preparation, and smell is a learned sense. We know a smell, we smell it, and then we remember it. And then, so so it helps our memory, but it also it develops based on our memory. And because women were exposed to more spices in general, probably during cooking, they say that might be another reason why their sense of smell is better. I mean, there's also changes that happen depending on the cycle. Like certain times of the month, women's sense of smell changes. During pregnancy, their sense of smell changes, which I remember working with people who literally would because I worked in OBGYN. So I remember people would say, oh my gosh, that smell makes me so sick now when they were pregnant and they just couldn't handle it. It was just, would make them nauseous or it would. So, yeah.
It is so heightened when they are pregnant that they perceive everything miles away. And they are so sensitive for that. I remember when my wife was pregnant and she had that sense of smell with, for example, eggs, the smell of egg produce in her the nausea and this sense of feeling like she was going to puke, and sometimes she did, no, but that is safety mechanism as
Yes.
we were speaking. And also the memories, I'm also very intrigued by how we assemble our memories with one smell, with one particular smell that every time, sometimes would you pass by someone and it smells like a person that you were intimate with, you remember everything and it flashes in your mind, no?
I absolutely, and I think it is remarkable. In some ways, it's just this amazing tool, because we can travel back to that place in seconds. It's also the same, I think, with music. Like we can listen to a song and we feel the same way. We can remember exactly where we were. I had something similar. I had a great aunt that wore a perfume, and I remember all of a sudden I smelled an essential oil. It was petitgrain, which is basically it comes from the orange tree. And I remember thinking to myself, I know this smell. Like I know, and I knew it was from her perfume. And I went and looked it up when I got home, and it turned out that it was in that perfume. And right away I knew it from her. I think it has to do with the fact that when our sense of smell is triggered, so our sense of smell, the neurons that are located in our nose and our nasal passage, first of all, they're the only neurons in the body that are exposed directly to the atmosphere. So they're constantly sampling, like whatever we breathe in through our nose. They're exposed. And so they sample the air for, that's basically their whole job. And then it interacts and goes to the olfactory bulb, which is a part of the brain. And from there, it goes to two major centers, and that's the memory center and our emotional center. And part of the reason it does that is for survival, is the fact that if it triggers something that we have perceived in the past as dangerous, we know we have to act. Like we know, okay, danger's ahead. And, I was thinking about this because it's, sometimes you might think, do you really use that now? Is that really important? And I was on the freeway on the highway with a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden there was that rubber smell, like you had a flat tire, and it wasn't from us, but all of a sudden you could see us both react. It was kind of like we both had this kind of reaction of like, oh my gosh, did our tire just blow? And so, we still use it. And then the other thing is it taps directly into our memory center, and that is also survival. Like this way, if something was dangerous previously, like this experience with the tire, we know we have to be careful, we have to slow down, we have to react. And so, but it is directly linked to those two areas. So once it stimulates through the olfactory neurons and it goes to the olfactory bulb, it goes to the amygdala and the hippocampus, those two areas of the brain, which are very key to memory and very key to our emotions, which, as a species, we needed to make it as far as we've come.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, no, go.
Okay. You're right. And I think that's where it's also connected to the intuitive aspect as well, or our innate instinct, whether to, our flight, freeze kind of reward. But you're so absolutely right. And different smells mean different things to different people. which is quite incredible in that sense. And it's almost like a guessing game. Like with my kids, I'm like, okay, so do you like the smell of petrol or gasoline? Some
Mm.
people absolutely love it, and some people absolutely hate it. Or the smell of deep heat. Like deep heat brings good memories for me as well, and it's good because my dad used to play basketball, and the guys used to use it to warm up their muscles before they went to go play on the court. So that it brought back those memories as well. I wonder if you could use it for studying, like if you played an essential oil or something like that whilst you're studying or whilst you're doing something, and then during the exam put it on as well. I wonder if it would actually support the memory of what it is that you've been learning.
Well, there are studies that show that it can. That if you then wear, and there's all these different ways that I've seen people do it, where they wear like aromatherapy jewelry to kind of keep it with them so that they can recall whatever it was they were studying. I worked with a young girl for a while, and it was really interesting because I think some of it is about like belief and mindset. So she was like 10 years old and she had attention issues. And so when she would study, her mother would diffuse certain oils and everything. And then if you asked her about it, she would say she started to do better in school. And if you asked her, she would say, oh, the oils make me smarter. And it was like she believed that they were working, whether they did or not, whether you believe that or not. The thing is, she believed they did. And so she did better in school. I think they do help, but I think it was really interesting that was her reaction. And in some ways, kids are really great to work with because as adults, we tend to debate whether things work. Like, I got into essential oils from my dog, actually. My dog had what would be called Alzheimer's, dementia. And one of the symptoms is that they wander at night and they bark because they're afraid and they don't know where they are. And so I wasn't sleeping. And my friend gave me a essential oil diffuser and said, diffuse these oils and you'll sleep. And I remember, and the dog will sleep. And I remember thinking she was like crazy. I was like, you've got to be kidding. And I remember the dog hadn't slept for months and slept like 3 nights in a row. And it was really my dog that convinced me because they don't decide to them, there's no placebo effect. They're just like, okay, it smells better. We get too much in our head and we're like, oh, it's my imagination, but, so yeah, she was actually the one who kind of got me into essential oils.
Yeah. And I love that you share about this, about the studying and linking it to the smell, because I think, by the way the sense of smell works, as we're mentioning, these neurons and connected to the limbic system and to the cognitive system, because it's assembling memories. It has to do with something, so it's not just the placebo effect. It's something that really can work, and I think that usually when I used to study for an exam and I went to the library and I sensed the smell of new books or just the pages of the book, I had this sensitivity to the knowledge that I was thinking. And if you link that sense with your visual, that for me was a lot of visually aids that I designed. I used to do these summaries written by I never took it in the exam, but I always did it because that's how I learned, and creating diagrams and drawings or tables, whatever it bring me, the things that I wanted to pick up from the topic. So it is just an undervalue sense, no?
I mean, the more recent work now, and part of it was, like you mentioned originally, David, was COVID, because I think all of a sudden loss of smell became a big topic because it was such an obvious symptom for people that, of COVID. And then now with long COVID, people have lost their sense of smell for extended periods of time. And it became further, just more in the research world, or more, I guess, more paid attention to. is the work that's being done on memory, and especially for older people with cognitive decline, and or people who you might categorize as having forgetfulness. And now it's being a lot more studied, I think, because they're seeing such interesting results with people who they actually exposed to essential oils and memory improvement.
It's true. I'm just looking at some statistics here that I was going to say. It says like smell is directly wired to our emotional and memory centers, which is what we said. And it said, and maybe that's why experiences involving scent feel profound. In fact, research shows that smell influences about 75% of our emotional experiences. That high. Isn't that incredible?
I mean, and if you think about it, I mean, there are like certain aromas that are known for certain things. I mean, florals in general, people think of as comforting, and people, and if you think citrus, people think, like lemon, wild orange, people think sunshine, and they think warmth. There's and happy. And so they do have the ability to kind of provoke a particular emotional state within us. And then just in general, like, I mean, if you do like screening of people and just ask them, what kind of aromas they like or whatever, it's really interesting to see.
Especially for those people that I was reading kind of like that for religious effects, I mean, even if you think about the church, like constantly it's the incense, it's burning, it's all of that. And the smells are linked to divinity, or they link to something. And I think that brings comfort as well to people. When they're in I burn quite a lot of incense for its energetic frequencies as well. But it's actually, the girls say that my house smells like incense. Their friends say that, but it's because of that. So I think they link that to us, right? When it comes to that as well. But I find that absolutely incredible from that comfort aspect. Or I feel like I'm in church, or maybe not, depending on how you feel towards like a church or a religious center as it is, right?
I think it was also part of the reason they built them out of the materials that they built them out of. Like originally, a lot of them were done in woods and things like that, because you had things like cedar wood and sandalwood and everything, which have very, very highly energetic as far as frequency oils, and were associated with meditation and prayer and community. And these were places where that's what you were trying to promote. So in a way, it made a lot of sense that the materials they actually were building with were actually emitted oils. And I think you see it also in practices, things like forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku from, Japan and Asia, where part of the influence and the effects on calmness and the nervous system is exposure to those aromatics through the trees while you're in the forest. I mean, that's the best case scenario if you can actually be out and be in it. But depending on the season that you're in, and also the climate and where you live, you might want to bring it home with you to kind of promote that same feeling.
So speaking of that, I'm going to ask you both, what is your favorite smell?
That's an interesting question. In terms of essential oils, I would say eucalyptus is one of them, is one of the favorites for me. And I think that there is another oil that is from the tree. I think it's from the green tea or something like that. That smells like the pines. So I like that smell of pine.
Yeah, I'm a eucalyptus or a tree oil person. Like I like, frankincense. I like the spruces, the coniferous trees, which to me, I think because it evokes that feeling of being outside, even though I'm not outside. And also because in general, they tend to be good for breathing. And I think I find them really calming, because it's like, I'm like, oh, okay, breathe, like taking a deep breath. So I think that's why I talk about calmness. I think about those oils for me.
And I think that relates to the statistics that you gave us, Natasha, about 75% of being linked to our emotions, because when I smell, for example, this eucalyptus or any other tree oil, like any pine, even not smelling the oil, but smelling a pine outside, it brings me this peacefulness of a wood and feeling safety also, no?
Yeah, I burn quite a lot of Palo Santo as well. So I like the smell of Palo Santo as well. But one smell that brings a complete memory to me, because I grew up in South Africa, you could smell the rain before it came. Like you could smell it. And that reminds me of home. And it gets me really excited because we used to have these massive torrential downpours, but we knew it was coming because our torrential downpours used to happen in summer. So we used to play outside, but absolutely love the smell because it's like, I don't know if it's the dust or whatever, but you could smell the rain coming. And that used to really make me excited. Or yeah, it used to make me happy.
But I think you bring up an important, and that's just like, like surrounding yourself with aromas that actually make you feel like that. Like I always think, my mother used to like clean the furniture with this polish that smelled like lemons. And whenever I smell that, I think of her. Like, I mean, I think of like my home when I was growing up. I think of what that smelled like. So I think that, it's whatever. And then yet there are smells which other people might, I have a friend who's a combat vet and actually feels like you would think that maybe like the smell of smoke or, some sort of like would actually trigger him, but he actually finds it comforting because, it's familiar, I guess that to him that, protection or just being able to like kind of comes up. So it's kind of interesting. I might consider that dangerous.
Yeah.
Something to fear, but he actually doesn't.
So you're right. That smell of wood, because we had an incident in the house a year ago. If I smell it, I'm like, where's the fire? If my girls smell it, they're like, oh my goodness, it reminds me of barbecues and marshmallows. And I'm just like, and my heart's like, oh my God, where's it coming from? Kind of a thing, which is hilarious. But here's another interesting fact. So people are about 35% more likely to remember something linked to a scent than something experienced through other senses, which it makes me really sad that people would give up the sense of smell for an iPhone or for anything that is there. That like it just, even especially listening to the statistic, it's really, really sad.
Yeah,
that
and
study.
I think that's really interesting. And I think part of it is the fact that when it interacts with the brain, it interacts with the brain directly. Most of our other senses need to go through like the thalamus or another central sort of routing region to actually direct it to where it needs to go. And our sense of smell kind of directly impacts those centers. So we quickly react. And so I think that that's part of the reason that it's like, it's one of our I think our primary senses like of warning. We think we don't really pay much attention to it, but I think that it then it is that valued sense of like, you're like, oh, I have to like, either good or bad,
Yeah.
We have an amazing park not too far from here that has this amazing rose garden, which is like known like all over. And just going there when roses are in season, like, I mean, it's just remarkable. Like, it's like being enveloped in like this, and it's being out in nature. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you were reading my mind because I can tell, like, okay, again, South Africa, we're very much kind of like is quite a dangerous place, but you can almost smell the fear sometimes. You can smell somebody's fear, like that sense that comes in. It must not only hit the sense of smell, but all of your senses at the same time. Or do we think that smell actually triggers the other senses? Do you think we smell it first?
I mean, from what I've read, it tends to be one of the initial ones. And then, that kind of triggers or kind of creates this kind of awareness, let's say, a radar that goes up and you're like, oh, okay. Like, and all of a sudden you're looking around to what you see.
Yeah.
And you're starting to listen for what you hear. Like if you hear anything, I mean, that's just my impression of it from what I've read.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
I
Thank you.
think it's a sense that we share with many species because, I mean, dogs, of course, that they are our most, let's say, friendly neighbors in this sense, and they map the world. I was reading about the sense of smell in dogs, and they without that sense of smell, if a dog doesn't have that, it is almost completely broken totally because they really perceive everything through the sense of smell, and that's why they when they are going to go and do their needs, they smell the places and they say, okay, here I can do my business.
Well, and on the reverse, my dog now is older and they think he has a brain tumor. So he's very, very unsteady. And he's old, so his vision's also going, like his eyes aren't so good anymore. So between the two, when I walk him, it's so interesting because I would say his nose, where he used to like walk and lift up his head, you could see that his nose is glued to the ground because he's navigating his whole world by his sense of smell at this point. So it's so interesting because it's something I noticed because it's like huge. Because I'll watch him walk and it's kind of like he never lifts his head anymore. It's kind of like I have to, and there he is. He knows I'm talking about him. he has to he has to navigate the world somehow, and that's the sense that he has left. And his hearing and his smell his hearing and his vision is going because he's just under 14, and so he's like, okay, I better, I have to walk around and I have to look for things, and so it's really interesting to watch though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes so deep when it comes to the dog sense of smell as well. I've got two chocolate labs as well, and they're quite, yeah, so they're quite, and absolutely, they're like, as soon as I'm in, like, they know who you are, they know where you've been, they know your emotional state, your health, like they respond very differently when one of us are sick as well. I think one supports more emotionally, the other one's more physically, which is so interesting. They can smell like how long ago somebody passed through the area. And I find that so fascinating from that. And their memory of smell is also incredible as well.
Yeah, it's really
Right?
interesting because they actually have more neurons for sense of smell than we do.
Okay.
Quite a lot more, which is why but on the other hand, our system is more complex than theirs is. So there's now been some debate whether humans have as poor a sense of smell as was once thought because of the complexity of our sense of smell. But their sense of smell is amazing, like you said. I mean, I remember once going and I volunteered for some sort of like dog rescue thing, and I was around a lot of dogs, and I came home, and first of all, my dog wouldn't come near me. He was like, where have you been? Like, like you betrayed me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That you're surrounded and you smell like all these dogs. But animals in general are really interesting, cats or dogs, and the fact that they can tell exactly where you've been based on smell. And I think they navigate the world very similarly. Like, I think that the same patterns, the same walks. I mean, that's why they say it's really good to mix it up because they get to smell different things. Just like it's really good for us to sort of do different things because it challenges our brain in different ways, our senses in different ways.
Yeah.
And now shifting direction maybe to how it relates to our brain health. How can we improve our brain health through a smell or to a particular oil that we can have around us?
Yeah. So part of the reason I became very intrigued is that I had read a study that was done about 2 years ago, but then a friend of mine contacted me and asked me some questions about Parkinson's disease. And it turns out that when I did a lot of research, that almost every major brain disorder comes with some sort of loss of smell. And I was really, from Alzheimer's to Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, MS, seizure disorders, traumatic brain injuries, all have some sort of loss of smell, some dramatically and some just minor changes in smell. And it started to really, like, I started to think about it. I was like, well, why is that so? Like, what is it about loss of smell? Is it like, and so now in things like Parkinson's, they realize, and in Alzheimer's too, that you can have changes in sense of smell up to 10 years prior to developing any other symptoms, which is pretty significant when you talk about some of these conditions. Like, is there intervention or time for intervention before someone develops really complex or severe symptoms of disease? And what could be done, whether that be energetically or environmentally or personally, to kind of alter that. And so I do a lot of work with people, with older populations. I do a lot of work with people. And so the original study that I had read was done by at the University of California in Irvine, where they actually, I don't know how many people were in the study, but the range of age was 60 to 85. I think the people did not have any cognitive decline or very minor. But they found that when they diffused essential oils at night, and I'll talk a little bit about the protocol, they had an increase in memory by 226% and verbal fluency. So it really made me think about our sense of smell and memory. In this study, what they did is they had seven different essential oils, and it wasn't any particular oils per se. It was really, they chose the ones the lab people liked, which kind of made me smile coming from my background. I was like, that makes a lot of sense, in the lab world. And they worked their way through the week and they diffused, let's say it was 7 oils. So let's say they diffused only lemon on Monday and then lavender on Tuesday, but each oil individually. And it was the variety. They found like combinations or mixtures were too complex. It was almost like too much for the brain to decipher. They told them to do it. You could do it during the day, but they said at night because they knew people would comply. They knew people were home and basically weren't asking people to do much except sleep while the oil was going. And so they knew that people would do it. And so I have a number of people now doing this, and I've gotten feedback from people saying that they really feel like their memory has improved. So it's been very interesting to me to try to kind of decipher that and what's happening exactly. Like, is the memory going, and then, does the smell go, and that lack of stimulation to the brain cause some sort of decline in memory? Or is it a change in memory, and since smell is a learned sense, like that change in memory, like, is it reciprocal, like, or what's happening? I don't know if it really matters what's happening first, but I've been starting to sit with and trying to figure out like the mechanism, which I don't really know if they know exactly what's happening, because they found that people who have no sense of smell that did it actually had an improvement. So there must be some other mechanism besides maybe the direct neurological pathways that we know of, or it also may differ depending on why they've lost their sense of smell. But yeah, so.
That's fascinating. So the protocol is just burn 7 different oils, 1 on each day of the week?
Yeah. I mean, it
doesn't matter which ones? I mean, not burn them, like diffuse them.
Yeah, diffuse them. Yes. I mean, they said it's, as opposed to like if you come from an aromatherapy background at all, usually like this oil is good for this and this oil is good for that. And they just chose 7 oils. I tell people choose 4 categories. So maybe choose a citrus, a mint or eucalyptus, a spice, and something that's floral. And then kind of, at least one of each in the category, and then cycle them. It's called, actually, they have a word for it. It's like olfactory training or smell therapy. I think of it as PT for the nose or some sort of like physical therapy for the nose.
Your nose.
Yeah, that's the way I think of it in my brain.
Oh, David, you're on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
Everything that you are sharing makes a lot of sense in terms of this cognitive decline. And I think that what is happening, my guess, and this has to be also researched more, is that we are also, let's say, overwhelmingly have too much stimuli in our environments right now, just like we have in our visual capacity, and we are having a trouble now because there is too much to, let's say, perceive from the world, that our memories become impaired, let's say, and they struggle to identify the different kinds of things that are happening, and making the separation of smells makes a lot of sense because it's like a detoxification of the stimuli, and just concentrating your brain in one particular aroma, let's say, and then you can link that to the particular memories that are going to bring up, and that's the stimuli. And the second day, it's like an exercise for me, no, like just exercising one muscle and then the next and then the next. So that makes perfect sense. And doing my research also, I find out that the Alzheimer disease symptoms can be traced by years, as you mentioned, with these biomarkers that we could design in order to understand that poor odor identification correlates with this faster. Also, it says that amyloid beta and tau protein, which are the buildup of the proteins that create Alzheimer, they are the pathologies that are visible. But if we detect that before, that could make a huge difference. No?
Yeah. And one of the things that I tell people to do, like, let's say I said lemon has that particular aroma for me, like that particular memory, as I always say to people, complete the loop. So let's say I smell lemon and I think about that memory of my mother and the cleaning or the, my home, but also a visual of like a lemon and what it looks like. And so then I've actually completed the loop. So I've all, maybe if I actually tasted a lemon, it would even add in the other sense. So then all of a sudden I'm kind of reinforcing it on multiple levels and I'm getting that, intact memory. I think where people who did something like that during the day, I always tell people like maybe do it twice a day if they can. And they say at a minimum of 6 months. And then kind of see where you are and see whether you feel like there's any improvement. And I'm not saying it's the only thing. I think you have to support your brain in other ways, like nutritionally and energetically. Yeah. I mean, it's like everything. And very similarly, the parts of the the protein for Parkinson's, which is called synucleoid, is the deposits in the pain, are actually found in the olfactory bulb first, before before they move up to the other regions of the brain. And so there is possibility of like saying, okay, well then loss of smell is like, can we prevent it somehow from from progressing?
Yeah.
And from reaching that kind of severity. And I love what you shared, David, about like the fact that we are so confused. We're bombarded all day. And I think one of the reasons is so few things happen is that our sense of smell can decline as we age. And part of that is because they are exposed to the environment, are those neurons, they are sampling air, they're also exposed to everything else. So they're exposed to toxins and pollution and, all those other things that are in our environment. So they either become clogged or they get damaged or, because, when you're older, they've had a long time of exposure, like they've had years of being, depending on where you live and, and the pollution levels or what you put in your home. And so they do have the ability to like decline as we age. And then somehow, I mean, when I was doing a little bit of research, and I have to do more research on this, there are estrogen receptors in our nose and olfactory epithelium. And there's a lot now, which, when I talk about women and their sense of smell and the fact that women's sense of smell declines with age because of lack of estrogen. And I want to do a little bit more investigating because there's also a higher association of women with Alzheimer's. And that could be reasons in general women live longer, some people say, but I'm wondering if there are like other reasons why that is, like if it is somehow estrogen related or something else. So that's been like on my mind to look further into right now.
That's so interesting, really. And I was just going to share that maybe in this protocol that you are implementing about sampling the different oils and separating by day, have you tried, or I don't know if you ask people to journal like 5 or 10 things that they can remember with that particular aroma to make a journal, let's say, so that they can stimulate in a way the memory by writing down the things and linking them to the smell, and then probably next week they will have another 5 things that they will remember from that same aroma.
I
No?
love that idea. No, I haven't, but that's a really interesting thing to think about. Because first of all, and I'm thinking now all of a sudden you got me thinking, my brain, like my wheels are turning of like, okay, if you were to like have a page for an oil and then like list 5 things on like day 1, and then day 7, if you go back to that oil, just add 5 things underneath it. So that all of a sudden you have this running list of things that essential oil triggered for you, like as far as a memory goes or an emotion, you know,
Yeah,
like,
on a-
yeah, how did it make you feel, you know?
they would
And
be
I wonder,
map. They would be creating a map of the memories
That's
because they would
right.
be linking the lemon oil with the 10 or 15 different memories. No, so that would be also a guidance for them.
Very interesting idea.
yeah, it's very interesting. It's got my wheels turning as well for both the reason that you were saying, Jan, and I do a lot of somatic work as well.
Mm.
So perhaps connecting a scent or a smell of trauma, working through that, and then replacing it with something that you'd want an emotion or something that you'd like to replace it with, that would perhaps shift that as well. Because we work a lot with color therapy as well. So if you were to name, saying, for example, feeling anger in the liver, what color is it? And then what would you want to replace it with once it's healed, and I wonder if you would be able to do the same with smell when it came to that as well.
I love the idea
Huh.
of somatic work of,
But sense.
scent. Technically, in a way you could, because there are certain areas of the body that are associated with specific emotions.
Yeah.
So if an oil provokes or stimulates a particular emotion in someone, doing somatic work or some sort of physical work regarding that area of the body might be very impactful. So, if someone thinks comforting or heart or love when they think of an oil, doing anything that's going to get them in touch with the heart or sort of tap into that somatic energy of the heart would be then further imprinting that smell or that memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have created
Beautiful.
a holistic approach
That's right.
just in this podcast. So I think that that would be a very cool protocol to explore, to link the writing, to link the body sensations, and also what happened to you in probably even because it is funny, and I was just thinking that people that suffer Alzheimer, they have a problem with short-term memory, but they remember things from far behind, so from their childhood, and they can narrate things very, very clearly. The only problem is sometimes with these shorter memories. So maybe we can help them with remembering things from previous weeks with these aromas. No.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is true that they remember things from, childhood, adolescence, and then they'll ask you the same thing over and over and over again for something that
happened yesterday.
Yeah, happened yesterday.
Yeah. And I
I'm
remember,
going to try your protocol. I'm going to try it. I'm going to diarize it. I'm going to see what happens.
I mean, it can be also in a preventative mode, of course,
Hmm.
that we can start doing it and just recruiting people for that protocol. So that,
Well, I
so
mean,
that
part of the reason I started was because, and at this time I didn't know this research, was my father had Lewy body dementia.
Mm,
And so in the end, when he was, that was, what he was diagnosed with. And so I think that after that, and he passed away before it got very severe, I thought to myself, like one of those proactive moments, I'm like, okay, like what can I do? Since they say it's not genetic, but you always wonder. I was like, oh, okay, well, what can I do to kind of impact my life to prevent this, to do
yeah,
whatever thing I can do to, to stay out of that type of situation. And
yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to work, but when people ask me if they work, I said, worst comes to worst, like my house smells really good. you know, you know,
I love that.
I believe they work, but
Mhm.
they're, it's not going to hurt me.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful way to probably wrap up all the information because we cross several areas about the smell. So, what can you tell people that they should look for in terms of the sense of smell if they start losing it, or ways to promote it? We speak about it deeply, but let's say three things that you could recommend for people.
So I think the first thing is one is, begin to notice or become aware of what, how you think your sense of smell is. Because the sense of smell is so, in some ways, easy to ignore, I don't know that we necessarily realize sometimes when we start to lose it. So, for example, if you're starting to add more spices to your food because food is bland, you might want to
Mm.
say to yourself, oh, okay, why is that happening? Or maybe all of a sudden you think to yourself, oh, I have to apply more perfume than I used to, or my shampoo doesn't smell the same. Like these are common things in our environment where we can start to notice, oh, maybe my sense of smell has changed in some way. And I'm not saying that everybody who loses their sense of smell is going to have a cognitive decline. Like I told a friend, they were like, oh my gosh. I said, I'm not saying that. There are multiple reasons why people lose their senses of smell. Speaking to older people a lot, medication can do it. There are a number of medications which cause you to have an altered or decreased sense of smell. Things like just the common cold or sinus issues or allergies can affect your sense of smell. So don't automatically think, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
Mm.
I think that if you do, I think that one is that whole body awareness. So really like taking a moment to smell. Like I have a presentation, and the last line is like, take time to smell the roses. And that is
Mm.
figuratively and literally. Like
Yeah.
like expose yourself to aromas that you like, and just there is this idea of appreciation and really acknowledging, like if you're going to eat something, and some of it is like a mindfulness tool of like
Hmm.
take a moment to like smell the food you're eating, take in the aromas. Like you're going to have a cup of coffee, like smell the coffee, you know and just savor that experience. And I think that keeps us
Mm.
present, and it also allows our mind to sort of to like
Inter-
yeah, to like calm down a little bit. And then we also get to exercise the brain, and the fact that we're actually working that sense of memory or sense of smell at the same time.
I love that. That's awesome.
and it's beautiful that you bring up the smelling of the food before you eat, because that is
Mm.
one of the most powerful tools to stimulate your enzymes and your digestion process and really, really make the absorption much better. And that is also a fact that has been researched. Mindful eating, that's the name of this technique, that you smell the food, that you let the smell sink, and then you start eating. So that's just really good for us. Thank you, Jan, for sharing all this experience, research, and protocols that we design in this podcast. So if you just arrived to the end of the episode, you can go back and rewind to the protocol that we suggested. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And where can people contact you, Jan?
Yeah, the best way is social media. So either Facebook. I'm not on Instagram so much, so usually Facebook or LinkedIn are
Okay.
the best places to find me under my name. They can send me a message. I would love to hear from them if they have any questions or they want a copy of the protocol. They can, send me a message if they need recommendations as to where to get oils. I'm happy to do so. Reputable companies, and and I would love to have a conversation.
Beautiful. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Yes, we just encourage people to rate us and look for us in our different platforms in Spotify, in Apple Podcast, and in Substack to connect with us and suggest titles or topics that we can explore and link between the spirituality and science. Thank you, and we will listen to each other on our next episode. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you both. So as you were saying, smelling food, yesterday